What's up, everybody? How are you doing? Lon Phillips Sullivan in the house. 2023 is around the corner. I know people think, the 2023 season, football doesn't start for a while. It's baseball time. It's basketball time. Football's not for a while. Well, we don't acknowledge that at LSUODYSSEY.com. As you know, football is 24/7, 366 days a year. So, with that said, we are very pumped going into this 2023 season. Okay. I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty with the roster. But since we know who this coaching staff is, what they're about, where they can take these players, how high they can, rise that development for these players, bridge those gaps on the roster. If we're at a position of disadvantage, you see those coaches elevate those positions. I'm really happy about the continuity with the coaching staff. I mean, you just got to start off straight from there, because this is the first time in a long time. I mean, even in LSU's winning seasons over the last 5-6 years, LSU have had just one defensive coordinator after another. Okay. One offensive coordinator after another. How many different defensive line coaches? How many different running back coaches? When you're looking at these different position groups, you're looking at least 3+ coaches over the last few years. So you're basically talking about a different coach each year. But this is the first season in a long time where there has been a coaching staff with continuity from one year to the next. Can you name the last season LSU had coaching staff consistency, continuity? Anybody take a guess? I guess you could say 2020 was the last time LSU had coaching staff continuity. But when you lose all the players that team did, but then people also ignore how many huge coaching pillars of that 2019 championship team immediately left after the second that title was on their fingers. You lose a guy like Tommy Robinson, you saw how that affected the running back core. You lose a guy with the energy for the receivers like Joe Brady, you saw the production go down. There's just a lot of there's just a lot of absences from this coaching staff that really hurt the team. You saw Coach O try and take over the defensive line for a season. We saw where that went. Bo Pelini was the defensive coordinator. Massive failure. I put that also on Coach O too, not just on Bo. I think both of them failed in that respect. Steve Ensminger did a great job in 2020 with 3 different starting quarterbacks. He had a 40-plus point game with 3 different starting quarterbacks in the SEC. I mean, is that insane or what? They actually, their poor play on offense in 2020 was always down to, just the newness of our quarterbacks, the green quarterbacks that we had, or, Miles Brennan's injury as well, affecting his play in that Missouri game. Even though he went off and he was great, he missed some throws at the end of that game because of that injury. Point is, really, if you look at all of it, on the face of all of it, since 2019, I'm going to say LSU have not had the type of continuity that we would want. Defensive coordinator to defensive coordinator next season, OC to OC, head coach to head coach, key position group to key position group, all coming back. You know, you've got some guys in the background who left, you know, but really everyone on that staff, key guys on that staff, staying put. Matt House back for year 2. I mean, how much better do you think that defense is going to be in year 2? I mean, how much better do you think that offense, you know, with Jaden Daniels in year 2, Mike Denbrock in year 2, how much better do you think that offense is going to be? I would say quite a bit. You know, I'm extremely excited about that with this team. Yes, there's still some positions of worry on this team. Linebacker. You know, you got Harold Perkins, who's one of the biggest stars in college football. So you think you're fine at linebacker, right? With Greg Penn, the third, being an experienced third-year guy. You know, and then you got Omar Spates coming through the portal as that veteran. But beyond those 3, it's slim pickings. Very slim. Linebacker is a position we have to be worried about. I think our coaching staff can make up for some of the, you know, gap of talent and experience there. I mean, really, it's not talent that we have a big gap of at linebacker. It's really experience. And that's why Omar Spates was such a big grab in the transfer portal, because really, we got some young studs, and had we been able to keep DeMario Tolan, that linebacker position group would look so much better. But, you know, we've got to put that in as a position group that's worrying. Defensive line, I mean, as much of an eminent force, or I should say preeminent force, as this 2023 defensive line under Jamar Cain appears on paper, there's something our man Hunt Palmer said on his radio show. I caught, you know, maybe only 5 minutes of his radio show today. I feel bad not watching all of it. Hunt is a good guy, but I'm not going to pretend like I saw all of it, but I will say that what I did catch from Hunt was really an interesting thought. You know, talking about how great our defensive line looks on paper, right? And then he pointed out how almost every single one of these guys are coming off of a pretty big injury, or even a surgery. You know, Deshaun Womack coming off a surgery, freshman. Jalen Lee, who just arrived. Jordan Jefferson just arrived. Both transfers, both coming off operations. Did Jalen Lee, or did I get that wrong? Maybe just Jordan Jefferson. I'm not sure about that with Jalen Lee. My bad. And then you got Mekhi Wingo. News that us and Golden Boot Pod broke. I guess Mekhi Wingo put that out on a podcast. No one really saw the podcast. Information was never circulated. That was news to pretty much everybody in LSU country. I mean, I think that was even news to the person who ran that podcast until I posted that. They may not have even known that Mekhi had said that, but you know, Mekhi reveals to us in a conversation that he had a labrum tear, had a surgery on that tear, will miss spring football. So, I mean, you've got a defensive line that a lot of talent and a lot of great pieces. You know, Quincy Wiggins, could this be the season he breaks out? Ty'G Hill, could this be the season he breaks out? Jacobian Guillory, now entering year 4 as a Tiger, was supposed to be a bash bro alongside, you know, his high school really close friend, close buddy, Jaquelin Roy, but Jaquelin Roy ascended and Jacobian Guillory kept getting injured. But Guillory looked really good in 2022, especially at the end of the season. And we saw him get a start, a very rare start. We saw him play extended reps for the first time, I think, in his LSU career, like for a full game. And he was fantastic. He wasn't, a world beater, but he was solid and fantastic, did the job, looked really good. And so, Jacoby Guillory was a player I was expecting to hit the portal. Okay? Someone I expect to hit the portal, and someone very close to Jacoby Guillory has told me he's not hitting the portal, Lon. Don't worry about it. And I was like, really? I'm shocked. And they're like, why are you shocked? And I was like, because there's, Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo are basically going to be the starting tandem DTs. And that person told me, yeah, but last year Mekhi Wingo probably was told that Mason and Jaquelin would be the two starting DTs. And after only a drive, Mekhi was the starting DT for the rest of the season. So, I understand that part of it. I really do. And so, this defensive line, there's going to be some attrition. There's going to be some injuries. There's going to be maybe some of these guys won't really get into the rhythm of the season until, week 2 or 3. Against Grambling, they come in for some more snaps after, playing a bunch against Florida State, and then put on some sacks, get some confidence boost there, and then go into Mississippi State, hopefully, with a full complement of healthy defensive linemen. But, there's a few spots that I am absolutely not worried about. Okay? And I know most people want to talk about, the negative and what's not looking good and what's worrying, and I get that, and we just did. But I think you're doing a disservice to this 2023 team when you don't understand that. Look at that receiving core. We lost Kayshon Boutte, Jack Besh, Jeray Jenkins. 3 guys right there that pretty damn good receivers. We lost all 3 of them, and guess what? I don't even think it's going to hurt our receiving core. I think it's just going to actually make things easier and actually open up opportunities even more. A guy like Brian Thomas Jr. may have been buried on a depth chart for yet another season. Chris Hilton Jr. We have barely even scraped the surface to even find out what type of talent that young man has, how he could develop as a receiver at LSU, and he would have been buried on a depth chart again this season. But both Brian Thomas Jr., Chris Hilton Jr., they're going to be freed up on the depth chart. They're going to have chances. They're going to have opportunities. Kyron Lacey, he's going to have chances. He's going to have opportunities. It's really, for me, what makes this receiving core so exciting is the additions of Aaron Anderson, the addition of freshman Shelton Sampson Jr., who I do believe will receive plenty of reps in year 1. Even despite the fact that he can't early enroll because of going to Catholic High. And so he will be coming in a little bit later to things. But that didn't affect Harold Perkins or Mason Taylor or Emory Jones when they came in, into the program in June. That didn't affect those guys. I don't expect it to affect Shelton Sampson Jr. as he comes into this team a little bit later than you'd expect. But this receiving core, led by Malik Neighbors, I think there's going to be a lot less confusion for Jaden Daniels. He's going to know who his favorite targets are. He's going to know where he wants to go with the ball, and that's usually going to be, Mason Taylor's a guy he loves to throw the football to, a guy he trusts with the football. Malik Neighbors. So you're going to see those two guys probably be the leading pass catchers for this team in 2023, I would just venture to guess. But Aaron Anderson, not far behind, absolute freak of nature talent. Another spot in 2023, another just thing that really makes me excited for this season. And I know we lost Walker Howard, very, very promising quarterback prospect. Could literally win a Heisman and a national championship, and I would not be shocked. That's how good he is. And now we're going to have to do battle with him in the SEC West. Probably not this year, but perhaps next season. Which makes it very strange that he left in the first place. But that's neither here nor there. Even though we've lost some depth at quarterback with Walker Howard's exit, I think this is actually a good thing for the team as well, because then there's not that extra element of, well, we could put in Walker. There's not that extra room for doubt. Now it's all in really with Jaden Daniels, and then Garrett Nussmeier's there in case things go wrong, in case, he somehow wins the job out from underneath Jaden this offseason, which I don't think will happen. I think it would take an absolute miracle for Walker to win this job out from Jaden Daniels after the season Daniels had, after the leadership, the poise specifically that Jaden Daniels showcased. And I mean, when you have a guy rushing for over 1,000 yards, over 10 touchdowns, throwing for over 3,000, it's you can't really just say no to that guy starting, can you? And I think having Daniels, that second year of continuity with a quarterback, yes, I understand that they're going to compare it to Joe Burrow's situation. I understand they might compare it to Zach Mettenberger's situation. But I don't think you can compare Jaden Daniels going into year 2 to really either of those guys. I think this is a new thing altogether, just because of how specific Jaden Daniels' talents are. I understand why that comparison is made. I get it, but I think we should do a disservice to Daniels and this offense when we keep bringing up Joe Burrow's name every 5 seconds. I'm just feeling a lot of really good vibes for LSU football going into the 2023 campaign. From the freshmen we're bringing in, from the 2022 guys going into their second year with a ton of experience, a lot of playing time, even some of the guys who, Jordan Allen, LT Welch, you haven't really heard much of, they still got to play quite a bit more than they would have under normal circumstances. Because LSU did have some garbage games and some big-time leads in some of these games where they were able to get some reps. And so I think you're going to see a prepared year 2, an experienced year 2, a hungry year 2 with a lot of guys, Will Campbell, Emory Jones, Mason Taylor, Harold freaking Perkins. I mean, the list goes on and on of guys who I think are really going to be great in their year 2. I mean, Ty G. Hill, a guy coming into year 2 at LSU, didn't really get many reps. There could be just enough injuries on this defensive line. There could be just enough wiggle room on this roster for Hill to play a big role this season, either early, late, middle, wherever. I think we're going to need someone like Ty G. Hill to bridge that gap. Get us through some of these games. Get us back to full health by, starting half a game here, doing something like that there. I just feel very excited about 2023's prospects at LSU because this is a team that, look at the SEC West. Just look at the SEC West going into this season, okay? Jalen Milroe is Alabama's quarterback. Bryce Young is gone. Alabama's dominant receiving core that continuously is reloaded has been a little thinned out. Georgia, say goodbye to Stetson Bennett. I know it's not in the SEC West, but also affecting the SEC. Stetson Bennett's gone. So we're a lot of top UGA players who are part of the last two national championship winning teams. Ole Miss could be some, division contenders. Jackson Dart in his second season, with some pretty good receivers there at Ole Miss. That could be a good team. 8+ win team, that could be a good team. Fantastic running back Quinshon Judkins, freshman All-American freak. They've got a good team. Arkansas are always hailed, always talked about, but they had a better team last year than they will this season, okay? And they screwed the pooch by scheduling such a brutal schedule for themselves. I mean, they had to fly to Provo, Utah in October and then play some type of brutal SEC West game right after that. Come on. So Arkansas, I haven't looked at their schedule. Hopefully, for them, for their sake, their schedule is a little bit more forgiving. But, good team, got beat up, underperformed, underachieved. It's typical Arkansas under Sam Pittman. I hate to say it, Sam Pittman's an awesome dude, great coach, but that team does tend to underperform with him as coach, and sometimes scheduling is that factor. So really, Alabama will be good, but right now, as we stand, we don't even know who Alabama's defensive coordinator is going to be. Probably Todd Grantham. Point is, Alabama are in more of an uncertain place than we've seen in a long time. Okay. Ole Miss, Arkansas, Auburn. Can you see any of those teams beating the Jaden Daniels, Harold Perkins, Malik Neighbors, Will Campbell-led LSU Tigers? I can't. Will LSU choke against Florida State right out of the gates again in week 1? I think when you barely lose that game, when having everything go wrong for you, in Brian Kelly's first ever game as a Tiger, I think LSU are going to be out for some revenge in Orlando in week 1. And I think that will set the tone for the rest of the season, which could be a really special season for LSU. 10 wins, Brian Kelly's first year. Where do they go from here? If you're asking me, just from looking at it right now, okay, I have to say, I have to believe anything less than going to Atlanta for a second straight season would be a disappointment. I know that sounds pretty lofty. Sounds like I'm putting a lot of pressure on people's backs or whatever. Look, LSU belonged in Atlanta this past season. We put 30 points on Georgia. Didn't make Georgia look too good, even though we embarrassed ourselves rightfully, with that horrible coverage on the blocked field goal. But LSU getting things together all tied with a shoelace, and transfers and freshmen starting in all these key positions in Brian Kelly's first season, I think all of that is just going to build up to this next season. But it's all about keeping that locker room tight and together, and it's all about the brotherhood in the locker room. It's all about the coaching staff having a plan, getting it straight, knowing what the identity is of this team, because the team changes year to year due to the portal, due to the NFL draft. But it appears from LSU's transfer haul already, over 10 guys already, and from the needs they've addressed with this 2023 class, you have to think, yes, Brian Kelly was ready for it. He anticipated it. And now, here we are. Team is basically settled, and we're going forward with a lot of excitement going into 2023. And LSU Odyssey will be there for every step of the way. And I like to announce right now, we will be in Louisiana once again to cover spring ball, cover summer conditioning, anything we can throughout this offseason. We will be there. We already have our tickets for spring ball to be there for the first few weeks. It's going to be epic. And Colin Baton Rouge, baby. 2023 LSU, baby.